Beto O'Rourke doesn't want you to have an AR-15, and he really doesn't care what the NRA thinks, which means he's going to lose against U.S. Senator Ted Cruz. Hey everybody, I'm Chad Hasty, host of the Chad Hasty Show, which airs weekday mornings 8:30 to 11 a.m. Central Time on News Talk 95.1 FM and 790 a.m. KFYO. Well, if you're a Democrat in Texas and you're running for a statewide office, like let's say U.S. Senator, there's a couple of things that you should probably avoid altogether. An endorsement of abortion, and number two, an endorsement of being anti-gun. Well, for Beto O'Rourke, who is the candidate challenging Ted Cruz, it was already going to be an uphill battle, and he pretty much sealed his fate Monday when he was speaking to a crowd at South by Southwest down in Austin. This, of course, happening on Monday, and Beto went after the issue of AR-15s. According to Michael Calderon, who I believe writes for Politico, he said in a tweet at South by Southwest, Beto O'Rourke says there's no reason an AR-15 should be sold to civilians. Quote, I have no idea how that polls, and I should give a shit what the NRA thinks. Well, one, classy, but Beto does not care about, about how the NRA and others feel. Beto wants to get his point across, and Beto believes that, swearing, which he's fine with, he's got no problem with, and I really don't care if he goes around to every campaign stop and, drops the F-bomb or, says, I don't give a shit about what the NRA thinks. That's fine if that's how you want to campaign, whatever. I guess, Mr. O'Rourke, you seem to come across as, I guess, cutting edge and edgy when you drop that. All the cool kids will like you. Here's one thing I know. Texans like guns. I am a Texan. I own guns. I own an AR-15. You saying that I should not be able to own an AR-15 is pretty ridiculous. And the fact that you say that Texans and average Americans should not be able to purchase an AR-15 pretty much seals your fate. You're not going to win this thing. In reality, I don't even know why you're running if that's really what you think, and you really, and you sort of believe, I guess, that you have a shot at winning in the state of Texas. Again, Texans support the Second Amendment, by far support the Second Amendment, and Texans believe that you should be able to own an AR-15. Now, are there Texans who don't like AR-15s? Are there Texans who don't believe that you should be able to buy an AR-15? Absolutely they are, and I guess you're speaking to that crowd, but it's a much smaller crowd than the crowd that Ted Cruz speaks to, and Ted Cruz believes that you do have a Second Amendment right. Ted Cruz does believe that citizens who are capable and who are responsible and who are legal should be able to protect themselves either with an AR-15 or with any other gun that they should choose to protect themselves and their property with. Beto in this comes across as, the anti-gun guy, and that's what he is, and that's perfectly fine if that's how you want to believe, but it's not how Texans want to be represented, in my opinion. Let's not forget that here in Texas, in Sutherland Springs, when a shooter went to that church and opened fire, he was carrying an AR-15. And the person who was able to stop him was a civilian outside of the church, a good guy, with an AR-15. He was able to fire back at that madman, who never should have been able, by the way, to purchase an AR-15. But the only reason why he was able to was because of a failure of government, a government that people like Beto O'Rourke and other Democrats, other far-left liberals, want you, the citizens, to believe in and want you to believe that the government will always take care of you. What we saw in Sutherland Springs was a failure of the government. What we saw in Parkland or in Florida at Parkland High School was a failure of the government and a failure of those police forces who knew about this shooter. People like Beto do not represent the majority of Texans, in my opinion, and I believe we'll find out in the upcoming election that he definitely doesn't represent the majority of Texans who will be heading to the polls. Tune in to the Chad Hasty Show weekday mornings, 8:30 to 11 a.m. Central Time on News Talk 95.1 FM and 790 AM KFYO.